with your host, Jaden Miller.
Good day, and welcome to Think About It with Jaden Miller. I am your host, Jaden Miller. Please like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. I am on all of them, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Spreaker, Google Podcast, Castbox, iHeartRadio, Audrey, Podvine, and Amazon Podcast, and many, many more. Please check out my website at www.jadenmiller.com. Along with being a podcaster, I am an Arizona wedding photographer. So if you need wedding photography or senior photos or engagement photos, then I guess it's kind of like a one-shop location to go to. You can go onto my website, see some of my work, and if you're interested in hiring me, I'm certainly looking forward to taking on new photography clients. There has been a lot going on in the world this past week. I hope you all had a great July 4th. Unfortunately, there are people in the United States that did not. On July 4th, there was this horrific shooting in Highland Park, Illinois. I'm from Chicago, and Highland Park is just 30 minutes north of Chicago, maybe a little less than that. Michael Jordan lived in Highland Park when he played for the Chicago Bulls. Quite a few other athletic stars live in Highland Park. I have several friends that live in Highland Park, and so when I heard about the devastation of this mindless act committed by this individual, certainly, it tugged at my heart. A number of individuals were killed during a July 4th parade in downtown Highland Park. Just really, really horrific. The shooter, Robert Cremo III, from what I understand, is 21. He perched himself on a rooftop with an assault-type rifle and started shooting into the crowd, killing at least 7, injuring about 25 to 30 more individuals, including a 8-year-old boy named Cooper Roberts, whose actually spine was severed, and because he was shot in the chest, and may never walk again. And amazingly and thankfully, he is still alive. But again, just a horrific day. 7 people lost their lives, including a Mexican national, 2 parents of a 2-year-old, Irina and Kevin McCarthy. They were at the parade, and their son, 2-year-old Aiden McCarthy, miraculously survived because his father shielded him with his body. His mother, meaning Mr. McCarthy's mother, was also at the parade, and she was shot as well. The young boy was left walking in the street, and luckily there were people who were fleeing the shooting that saw him and protected him during the time it took for them to identify him and notify next of kin. Jacqueline Sunheim, 63, was a preschool teacher. She passed away. Catherine Goldstein, 64. Eduardo Uvaldo, 69, who spent most of his life in Mexico, but then moved to Waukegan, which is a suburb of Chicago, lost his life. Unfortunate, really, really unfortunate. Nicholas Toledo Zaragoza was 78 years old and lost his life. Stephen Strauss, 88 years old. He would have celebrated his 60th anniversary in September. And so just so many tragic stories of that day. Robert Cremo III, the shooter, 21 years old, lives near Highland Park. There has not been, at least given to the public, an explanation as to why he did this, but we do know that after the shooting, he left the assault rifle at the scene and had dressed himself as a female so that he could leave the scene undetected. He drove to Madison, Wisconsin, had another assault rifle with him, and contemplated committing another act of mass tragedy. However, he didn't feel that he, according to police reports, had planned ahead enough, and so drove back into Illinois. Madison, Wisconsin is just over the Illinois-Wisconsin border, so not a very, very long drive, but all of this going on while the police are searching for him. Again, a very, very tragic situation in Highland Park. And of course, there's always the opportunity for some to make it a political issue when it comes to, the banning of assault rifles. And so you have the pro-guns section that comes out, and you have the people that want to control access to certain types of guns, the gun control activists that come out. We're still dealing with the tragedy. These people's lives have been altered forever. And so the political maneuvering, I think, is really ridiculous. People need time to grieve. There's an 8-year-old boy with a severed spine that may never walk again. There are so many other people that have been injured due to shrapnel and bullet fragments and all kinds of other stuff. And the thing that we forget is that these tragedies, we only see a sanitized version of it because we get them from news reports. We may see some brief video clippings, but the damage to the bodies, just like in Uvalde, Texas, some of those children that were killed are not able to have open casket funerals, or were not able to have open casket funerals because the damage to bodies are so horrific. There was one man at the Highland Park parade who was shot in the back of the head. That's massive damage to a body. These are wounds that, some say that should only be, on a battlefield in war, but we're seeing these in the heart of America. And so that's really something that we all should consider and think about. The tragedies that, have befallen so many people in the United States. Aside from this shooting in Highland Park, across the world in Japan, the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was assassinated. And in Japan, they have very, very strict gun control. And my understanding is that the shooter of the former Prime Minister of Japan made this gun. So another tragedy in Japan that has really shocked the Japanese people. All of this within the last week. I'm hearing some reports that in South Africa, there's a mass shooting where more than 10 people have been killed. And this just happened last night. So again, just so much happening in the world today. And so I think we ought to really give it some thought and think about, our lives, and think about the issues that confront us every single day. Are we safe? Are we really, truly safe? If we did look at it in terms of the political, maneuvering, is gun control any better? Are those that are pro gun activists, are they right? Just so much to consider. But it's hard to consider those things when there's a death in front of you, and when people are running to, in order for their lives to be saved. Those just aren't the times to be thinking about that. And the political maneuvering can happen at a later time, but this is the time to grieve, and this is the time to really reflect upon our own lives. So I just wanted to talk about that really quickly. there's another issue that has really been confronting us lately, and it involves a young man named Jayland Walker. Jayland Walker was killed by police in Akron, Ohio, back on June 27th. And I just want to talk about that for a few minutes as well, because again, these tragedies, and they just don't befall those innocent people that are out at a mall or at a school or at a parade. But tragedy transcends all of that. It's all over the place, it seems, now in the United States. And so back on June 27th, Jayland Walker fled the police due to having some traffic violations. And as he was fleeing in his vehicle, he stopped, got out, and then ran from the police, which is a scene that we see quite often in communities across the United States. So I was reading a report on CNN where there's a gentleman named Curran Webb, and he says that he understands why Jayland Walker led Akron, Ohio police on a car chase and then ran on foot before 8 officers fired dozens of bullets at him. Now, I don't know if you all saw the video, but you can certainly pull it up and look at it. There's Jayland Walker. He exits his vehicle. He runs from the police. And 8 police officers unload 90 rounds, 90 at him, at a man that is running away from them. And according to reports, he suffered at least 60 gunshot wounds. 60. I want you all to think about that while you like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and like, comment on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget, check out my website at www.jadenmiller.com. Reflect and think about that for a minute. There's someone running away from the police that is shot at 90 times and suffers at least 60 gunshot wounds. Curran Webb on the CNN said that it's the terror of knowing that no matter what you do, this may not end well. Webb heads a job and life skills program for young black men in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And if I didn't mention it, Jayland Walker was an African-American man. And once again, we have a situation where there's this unarmed man, okay, and there's this confrontation with the police. Or in this situation, there is no confrontation. This individual is running away from the police. Curran Webb said it's ingrained fear for your life. What is the best way for me to try to survive? It's the reality of being black in America. The police killing of 25-year-old Walker last month has reignited a conversation about the fear and panic black Americans feel during police stops, with some suggesting that Walker ran because he wanted to survive. Think about that for a minute. There's a police there's a police matter in front of you. You've committed a traffic violation. You know you did. And the thing about it is most people that commit traffic violations know they did. It's really funny when, as a police officer, which I was, you walk up to a car and, the first thing people ask you is, well, what did I do, officer? Well, you know what you did. You know you didn't stop at the stop sign. Or you ran a red light. People can be really funny. But the situation is really different for African Americans, and specifically African American men, because there's this belief often in America and across the world that African American men are these aggressive violators, and I think some of that is certainly because of media accounts and so many other things. There was a police chief recently, and I think that was in Michigan, where there was a Boy Scout troop that came to view the police department and view the firing range. And noticed that most of the targets were of African American men. So what message does that send? To police officers out on the street, it sends this message that African American men are to be feared, that they are a consistent threat. Okay. And that's what the media likes to present to us quite often, that black men are a threat to society. When it's really funny that, we see a lot of these shootings, these mass shootings, they happen to be young white men. Who should we fear more? Should we fear black men who are running away from the police, or should we fear white young men who seem to have no problems being arrested by the police and not being shot 60 times in the back running away from the police? Unarmed black people are killed by police at a rate 3 times higher than white people, research shows. And many high-profile police killings of black people in recent years started with routine traffic stops. Notably, Philando Castile was fatally shot during a traffic stop in Minneapolis, St. Paul in 2016. And in April, Patrick Lyoya was killed in Grand Rapids, Michigan by Officer Christopher Scher, who was trying to arrest him after a traffic stop in a case that has drawn national attention because of the circumstances leading to the shooting and the multiple videos that show Lyoya's final moments. So black people or black leaders in Akron, Ohio, and across the country say the experience of black people, including witnessing deadly police encounters, has created a level of fear that explains why an innocent person would still run. So now Jayland Walker was a DoorDash driver. He was unarmed at the time he was killed and had no criminal record. All right. So Curran Webb said he advises young black men he mentors to comply with police when stopped, put their hands on the steering wheel where they can be seen, and answer yes, sir, or no, sir. Still, Webb said that doesn't guarantee a black person will walk away from the encounter. Most young black men in his community are terrified of having contact with police. They also fear retaliation from police if they report abuse. The thing that creates the distrust is their lived experience, Walker said. You can go back decades to black families who have been terrorized by the police, and he is absolutely right. Okay. There has been this us versus them mentality within police departments forever in the United States. Of course, it stems from slavery. Okay. You had these armed guards, whose job, specifically was either to go to the north, to retrieve runaway slaves, or those in the north whose job was to turn them over to their form or to their slave masters, or the slave patrols in the South. And so as we moved into the 1900s, we still found that even during Jim Crow era, police were not the friends of African Americans. And in fact, many police officers were members of the KKK and other white citizens groups, whose sole goal was to keep black people in their place. And then, of course, coming into the 60s and the 70s, while there had been some changes and you had more African Americans joining police departments, there still was this separation in terms of police departments and communities. And so, officer-friendly programs and community policing finally came into fruition because there was an understanding that we needed to work together. But even still, in some communities, that is not the case. And some police officers grow up in communities where their interactions with African Americans have been limited, or who grew up with this belief, that black people are less than. And it's so unfortunate when you have a badge on your chest and a gun on your side, and the mentality that there are people below you, especially when you took an oath to serve and protect everyone. Everyone means everyone, regardless of race and color and religion and sex and all of those things. And that means that when you go to work, you put aside those idiotic personal beliefs that you may have about others, and you swear to uphold the Constitution that is supposed to protect everyone. Some people that wear the badge don't realize that. And they come to work with a different attitude or with an agenda. And that's so unfortunate. And so then you have these situations that come up. All right. There was an individual also in that CNN article that I'm talking about. His name is Raymond Green. He's a local activist. He says, Black America's strained relationship with police plays out in Akron every day. He says that Black residents are subjected to unnecessary harassment by police, and many complain of being treated unfairly during traffic stops. So the incident prompts local leaders in Akron, Ohio, to call for changes in police procedures for car chases. This Green individual from Akron says he believes Jalen Walker panicked when he saw the police cars and fled. He was a Black man driving at night, and he had a gun in his vehicle. He was scared. I know that feeling, said Green. They pull you over, and before you stop all the way, there are 4 or 5 more police cars coming. They have 2 behind you, 1 in front of you, and 1 on the side of you. It is terrifying, and I can sense what he's saying. That can be terrifying. You know, being on the other side of that, I know how that feels as a police officer, and you're pulling up, and you know people tend to be a bit afraid. I see that, and I think what police officers have to remember is that, you are seen as this authoritarian figure, and you have to sit back. You have to think about those people, that could be fearful. That it is terrifying when you have a bunch of police cars to roll up on you. Okay, think of it in terms of being a woman alone, and there are 3 or 4 police cars that pull up and surround you. And let's say that they're mostly men. That can be terrifying for a woman. It can be terrifying for anybody, but it's very, very terrifying for African Americans, and I'm going to go on a limb and say probably for other people of color as well, to be pulled over by the police, knowing that there has been this history of bad blood, this history of African Americans who have guns legally, okay, and yet still are seen as criminals or are still shot down. So, we look at Jalen Walker. In his case, he had a gun in his vehicle. And the question is that a problem? Because remember now, the Second Amendment says we have a right to bear arms. Okay. Now, this goes to those individuals that, think that the Second Amendment is only for a certain segment of society. Okay. Because as a Black man, if I can have the right to have a gun too in my vehicle, right? Or is that only NRA members? Or is that only whites can have vehicles in their guns in their vehicles? Okay. No, we're Americans, right? Okay. Whether we're Republican or independent or Democrats, if the law says that I have the right to have a weapon and I have one in my vehicle, then there should be no problem. That's the law. That's what the Supreme Court has said as well. And so, Jalen Walker is being demonized because he had a gun in his vehicle. But there's a lot of people that have guns in their vehicle, right? Don't women carry them? Right? Yes. Is that right? I mean, we want to be protected from mass shooters. We want to make sure that no one steals from us or tries to take our lives. And so a lot of us have weapons for protection. And then Jalen Walker's case, he has one. OK, but he knows the history of interactions with police. See, you can be a Black man and legally have a gun, just like Philando Castilla in Minneapolis, and still be killed. So we ask the question, why do Black men run from the police? There you have it, because I may not even run from you and you'll still kill me. So that's the dichotomy. That's the situation that Black men confront very, very often in this country. Now, there are some law enforcement experts that say fleeing police is never a good response. Charles Ramsey Charles Ramsey is the former Philadelphia police commissioner. He also used to be a high-ranking member of the Chicago Police Department. He said he understands the anxiety Black Americans feel during police stops, and any police officer worth his weight in gold should be able to feel that anxiety. Okay? He raised his own son, now a police officer, to comply if ever pulled over. Still, Mr. Ramsey says running is the absolute wrong thing to do, and it puts civilians more at risk. When you're running, according to Ramsey, you raise the whole incident to a whole different level. Why are you running? Are you involved in something I didn't know about? From the police point of view, he says that police are being trained to de-escalate, but de-escalation comes from both sides. If police have reason to believe the person running is armed and a threat to the public, deadly use of force may be justified, said Ramsey. Now, he's not speaking specifically on the Walker case. He's just talking in general. Okay. There's an individual named Jason Johnson. He's the president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. And he said he also believes Walker was fearful when he decided to run from police. But Johnson insists that the fear in the Black community is unnecessary because police are not widely abusive or widely racist. Well, I may disagree with that. Okay. I think there should be some fear in the Black community. There is fear in the Black community based on history, a history that goes way back. I do agree with Ramsey, though, in that it is not good to run from the police. Okay. I think sometimes we fail to realize that police officers are human beings with egos, just like the rest of us. Okay. They weren't born with a gun and a badge. All right. These are real human beings. And he's right. Ramsey is right. When you run from the police, that leads a trained police officer with a good heart. Okay. Not these that, have these racist backgrounds and have these agendas, but those that clearly can understand, it makes them wonder, why is this person running from me? What did they do? And as a police officer, you have a responsibility to protect individuals, the public, and to apprehend offenders, even those that you may not know for sure are. Okay, but that gives you that reason to believe, or that probable cause to believe that this person committed some crime. So we have to, as a community, understand, okay, that from the police point of view, if there's someone that you're stopping for a simple traffic violation and they get out of the car and they run away from you, which does not happen in most of the communities, okay, and in most, communities across the country, when police are stopping vehicles, people are getting out and running, okay. But it has happened, and it does happen more so in certain communities. It happens for a number of reasons. It's happened because that person may have stolen the car, or that person may have committed a criminal act, but it also could be because that person is scared. But the reason why Ramsey says don't run is because the police don't know any of that. When they stop you, the police are at a real disadvantage, okay. They don't know if you have a gun in your car and you are planning to use it against them. A lot of police officers are killed during traffic violations. Okay. All right. So it gives them that reason to believe when you jump out of the car and run away that maybe you did commit some offense. Did you steal this car? Did you harm someone else? Are you going to harm someone? And so the police officer is going to pursue that individual in order to apprehend them, and then determine if there is a threat to the public. That's important. Okay. And so again, Ramsey and I and others say that it is not a good idea to run from the police. Okay. All right. And so, the advice of putting your hands on your steering wheel and simply complying for that time period. Okay. And again, many of us have egos and, we feel as though, well, the police work for us, but police are human beings and ought to be treated with respect. Okay. And police officers ought to provide citizens with that same respect. And so simply walking up to a vehicle as a police officer saying good afternoon or good morning, and explaining the reason why you stopped someone. Okay. And then listening to what they have to say, and then retrieving from them their driver's license, their proof of insurance, and their registration, or anything else that you may need. Okay. And on the other side, it does not hurt the citizen that's been stopped, especially if you committed a traffic violation, okay, to say, sir, I apologize. Yes, I did run that red light, or I'm driving a little bit too fast. Here's my driver's license, my proof of insurance. Thank you for your service. It's just a matter of just being polite. Okay, that's the de-escalation that Mr. Ramsey is talking about. Okay, so police officers are being trained to de-escalate. I'm hoping that police officers are getting more sensitivity training, and cultural diversity training is so important, because you can't blame, truly now, someone that grew up in a community away from people of color, okay, to actually know, okay, a lot about us. Okay, that's where in America we're just so divided, and that's why when we talk about education and social systems and everything, we can come together for athletics. Blacks and whites can play on the same team and get along, but in many parts of the country, we still can't even go to church together. Okay, in many parts of the country, we don't even eat together. Okay, we eat in separate restaurants, or we go to the black community, or we go to Chinatown, or we go here, and then quite often, there are a lot of black Americans that do not have white friends. There are a lot of white people that do not have black friends, and I'm not talking about these associates or these people that you claim to be friendly with, but real friends. And so that keeps us so separated in this country, thereby leading into that there are people that grow up in communities that just have had no contact with people of color, and so, they come up with these, or they're taught these, really ancient, belief systems about people, which, again, is really, really ridiculous. And so, again, it's very, very important that the de-escalation be on both sides, and that we get to learn each other, and then hopefully that'll limit, or certainly reduce these situations. And actually, not even reduce. There just should be no situations where black men running away from the police are shot at 90 times by 8 different police officers for one person. But yet, then again, we have Robert Crimo III in Highland Park, who was taken into custody without all of this. It wasn't 8 police officers shooting at him. He put his hands up. He got out of the car. They apprehended him. This was a big issue back when there was that killing in South Carolina at the church, Dylan Roof. The police apprehended him and took him to Burger King. Okay, and so that's why you have people in the black community that feel as though there's this, system where white offenders are treated one way and black offenders are shot in the back 90 times. And again, I don't see how anyone can justify police officers shooting someone running away from them. There's a Supreme Court case called Tennessee versus Garner. You all should look that up. And it talks about how it is not right. It's not legal for police officers to shoot someone that is fleeing from them. Okay. So anyway, that case in Akron, Ohio is really going to continue to be part of the mainstream conversation in America. Well, gosh, there's just one other thing I wanted to talk about today. And I wanted to talk about Clarence Thomas for a minute. Okay, so here I am going from Highland Park, Illinois to Akron, Ohio to Washington, D.C. And what I really want to talk about is something that is quite troubling to me. And it has to do with racism by liberals. Now, I know some of you may be a little shocked. What? Liberals? Racist? Yeah. Let me talk about this for a minute. First, let me talk about Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is the longest serving member of the United States Supreme Court now. He was confirmed back in 1991. He is a conservative. He was submitted to the Senate for approval by George H.W. Bush to become a member of the Supreme Court to replace the late Thurgood Marshall, who was the first African American on the Supreme Court. But this is the issue that I have. So it goes back to Roe versus Wade. So understand there were 6 Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn Roe versus Wade. Actually, let's take that back. Let's be more specific. There were 5 Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn Roe versus Wade, because Chief Justice Roberts did not vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. He voted to overturn the case that was in front of him that dealt with Mississippi. Okay, but he was against overturning Roe versus Wade. So there were 5 Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn Roe versus Wade. The majority opinion was authored by Justice Samuel Alito. However, in the aftermath of the ruling, there has been an intense and particular focus on a different justice, that is Clarence Thomas. Now, from what I understand, there are like millions of signatures on some internet petition to have him removed from the Supreme Court. My problem is this. Soon after the court handed down its decision, some pro-choice advocates began hurling outrageous and overtly racist remarks in Thomas's direction, including liberal evocations of the N-word on Twitter, often to the acclaim of some other left-aligned whites. The remarks were so ubiquitous that Uncle Clarence began trending on Twitter, a reference to the eponymous character of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, who has emerged as a symbol of black men who are too subservient to whites. In practice, the term is primarily deployed against black people who strike positions that elite liberals find distasteful. For instance, Uncle Tim previously trended on Twitter after black Republican Senator Tim Scott's rebuttal of President Joe Biden's inaugural address to a joint session of Congress. Then again, in other cases, minorities who violate the preferences and sensibilities of liberals are literally declared to be white instead. At least insofar as Thomas and Scott are branded as race traitors, critics still recognize their race. The thing that is a deep irony in characterizing Thomas or Clarence Thomas as an Uncle Tom, or worse, given that prior to pursuing public service, he identified with black nationalism. He is currently married to a white woman and has aligned with the GOP. However, as political theorist Corey Robin has shown in his book, The Enigma of Clarence Thomas, his views on race and racial issues have remained highly consistent over the course of his life. I bring this up to say this. All right, I'm not a big fan of Clarence Thomas, okay? And I disagree with a number of his decisions. However, I understand why he makes those decisions, which is really important, okay? So we can disagree, but we also need to understand why certain decisions are made, okay? So Thomas's embrace of the Republican Party is consistent with a deep mistrust of white liberals, the institutions they control, and the policies they try to advance in the name of social justice. This mistrust was widely shared among black activists of his generation and is in keeping with Thomas's Supreme Court decisions, including overturning Roe. If anything, the racialized attacks many liberals directed at Thomas in the wake of the Dobbs versus Jackson ruling confirm the pessimistic view of race relations that prevailed among many of the black thinkers who shaped Thomas's worldview and is exhibited by Thomas himself. For instance, Thomas was deeply inspired by Malcolm X. Malcolm X was a major black nationalist, okay? He had a poster of Malcolm X that hung in his dorm room. He memorized many of his speeches by heart, and he continues to evoke him frequently to this day. It was Malcolm X, of course, who famously declared that in this deceitful American game of power politics, the Negroes, for example, the race problem, the integration, and civil rights issues are nothing but tools used by one group of whites called liberals against another group of whites called conservatives, either to get into power or to remain in power. Okay? He argued that white liberals and white conservatives differ only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful than the conservative. The liberal is more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. This is Malcolm X talking. He continues by saying that by winning the friendship, allegiance, and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a tool. See, this is where and how Clarence Thomas grew up. He grew up distrusting white liberals. All right. Now, let's go back to the Supreme Court decision. All right. So now he's just one of 5 justices that vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. Why is he getting all of this ugliness directed towards him? That's my question. Okay, this is Think About It with Jaden Miller. Please like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. You can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Castbox, iHeartRadio, Audrey, Podvine, and Amazon Podcast. Please check out my website at www.jadenmiller.com. All right. So there are other people on the United States Supreme Court. Okay. There's Brett Kavanaugh. All right. There is Neil Gorsuch. We've already mentioned that there is Samuel Alito. There's Clarence Thomas, and there's Amy Barrett. Okay. All right. So the other ones that I mentioned are white. They have not gotten the angst and the ugliness directed at them as Clarence Thomas had. Now, I want to direct you to some comments that some white liberals have made. And see, this is what really, really bothers me. Okay. All right. So here, I'm going to give you an example of something that a liberal, this is something on Twitter. This is a Twitter user who goes by Abigail Markstein, calls Thomas a dirty porch monkey. And she declares that as a trans woman who is white, she's giving everyone permission to use the N-word on him. Now, this is someone that is supposed to be an ally, in this movement. Okay. She's a trans woman. All right. She's white. Okay. So if anything, there's this, supposed to be this understanding of white liberals and African Americans. And, we're all working together to get rid of the racism and the sexism and the, homophobia and all of that stuff in the world. But yet, who is she to call him a dirty porch monkey? So now, if there was a conservative that called him a dirty porch monkey, or if there was someone in entertainment or athletics or politics that called Clarence Thomas a dirty porch monkey, would we stand for that? So then why do we allow white liberals to get away with stuff like that? Okay. See, you can't be a white liberal and then be an ally of black people and use these words. Here's another one. A gentleman named John Corbett. He says that Clarence Thomas is just another dumb field nigger. What? I mean, he posts this on Twitter and used his name. Okay. See, first of all, no one, black, white, or of any color, has the authority to give non-black people the permission to use the word. Secondly, if Thomas was white while voting to overturn Roe, white liberals would have still ridiculed him, but there would be no racial slurs involved. This isn't speculation. It's demonstrated by the fact that the 3 white men and 1 white woman also voted the same way Thomas did, but they are not being called porch monkeys or N-words by a white trans woman. That's why it's still racist regardless of the white person's ideology. All right. See, the reaction to Thomas is far from the first time the leftist whites started swerving outside their lane, thinking they had an N-word pass because they also have been oppressed. Okay. I mean, this is ridiculous. At this point, trans people should be allowed to call Dave Chappelle the N-word. Okay. Some other white Twitter user posted regarding anti-trans jokes Chappelle has told on stage. Again, no, all black people aren't responsible for what Dave Chappelle says on stage, and you don't get to use a word that affects us as a people in order to vent out your frustrations at one black man. Okay. See? So, is there any wonder why Clarence Thomas, okay, is very, very suspicious of white liberals? All right. Is it any wonder why quite often African Americans are caught in this middle place? See, growing up in Chicago, Chicago is, or was, but I'm going to say is, still a major Democratic stronghold. Okay. But growing up in Chicago, I also remember and know and experienced, okay, this overt racism. You know, the Democrats are seen to be the more liberal, political party, one that is more accepting of people of color and people that have different sexual preferences, and women, of course, But then as African Americans, sometimes we just have to wonder. And that's why we see how the Hispanic community or the Latino community kind of, they have not really put their eggs in one basket. They can go either way, depending on what is politically expedient. And I understand that. Okay. But blacks as a whole in America have solely aligned with the Democratic Party. Okay. And sometimes I wonder if that's a wise move. Okay, because people can take you for granted. But going back to Chicago, has always been this strong Democratic city, this strong liberal city to some degree. Okay, and yet they call Chicago a city of neighborhoods. And the reason why is not because it's a city of neighborhoods, because Chicago was, and to this day still is, one of the most segregated cities in America, more segregated than the South back in the 50s and 60s. Okay. All right. White people and black people just did not live in the same neighborhoods in Chicago. I, as a teenager, got run out of a neighborhood in Chicago because I was black. All right. Never forget that. OK. But yet these are supposed to be Democratic strongholds. I worked for different departments in Chicago with some of the most racist people that still took and punched the Democratic ticket, would not align with conservatives at all. OK, but would deny me, would see me as a second-class citizen, hated me simply because of the color of my skin. So again, I asked the question, is there any reason why, how you cannot see why Clarence Thomas moves the way he does? It's because of that experience that he had. And he still is having. Okay. Now, again, I am not here to support Clarence Thomas. I don't agree with many of his decisions. Some of them I do. Many of them I do not. Okay. However, this attack, upon him by white liberals is unjustified and really, really nasty, especially when you start using racial epithets that if a conservative were to use or anybody else, you would be all over them. It's not for them, and you don't get the opportunity to use it just because you don't like a decision he made or his politics. It just should not happen. All right, this is Jaden Miller. Thank you for joining me today on my podcast. I want you to think about the things that we talked about in Highland Park. Just these people need time to grieve. Just a shocking display of hatred in that city just north of Chicago. Again, black men run from the police, and sometimes, or at least, we can see why, they do. That doesn't mean that you should, but we can actually understand why they do. There's just a history of black people having these confrontations with police officers that make them fearful. All right. And then white liberals, those that are using other racial epithets towards Clarence Thomas or any other black person that does not conform to your beliefs, you do not have the right to call them the N-word. You do not have the right to call them porch monkeys and any other negative racial epithet or comment that you can conjure up. It's not right. Again, thank you for joining me on Think About It with Jaden Miller. Think about those things. Please like and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. Again, check me out on my website, www.jadenmiller.com. That's it for now. I'll see you on the next episode. Again, this is Think About It with Jaden Miller. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Think About It with Jaden Miller. Don't forget to like and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and like and follow on your favorite podcast platform.